The Philadelphia Eagles and Los Angeles Chargers making changes at offensive coordinator after debacle wild card round playoffs, and we're ranking the rest of the teams in the playoffs, offenses, defenses, on today's NFL Six Pack.
This is Locked On's NFL Six Pack. 6 bold takes from 2 guys who just flat out know football. NFL experts Matt Williamson and Brian Peacock bring pure NFL talk. Great takes, no fluff. Just honest football talk. Crack one open. It's NFL Six Pack on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to the NFL Six Pack. Brian Peacock and Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Get those mailbag questions for us at those handles or in the YouTube comments. And thanks everybody for making us your first listen of the day. And thanks for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. We got some big news around the NFL, tons of head coach jobs open, but due to what we saw in the playoffs, maybe reactionary by the Eagles and the Chargers. What do you think? Let's start in Philadelphia, where Kevin Patullo, the offensive coordinator, fired. I think it was one of the most obvious moves that needed to happen after watching the Philadelphia Eagles lose to the 49ers at home in the wild card round of the playoffs. And I'm watching these two football teams, and I'm watching a decimated 49ers defense just hang in there and make things so difficult for a star-studded Eagles offense. And you're watching the game and you're thinking, there is no way that the Philadelphia Eagles should be defending champions this mediocre the way they're playing football right now. And there had to be a change. And if you're not going to make the change at the head coach, and you're certainly not going to fire Vic Fangio because they got the defense going in a pretty good direction there, it had to be the offensive coordinator in their first-year coordinator, Kevin Patullo. There's some other problems there as well, but I don't think this is a scapegoat situation. This is one of those where you go to bed Sunday night thinking that guy's not going to have a job Monday morning. First, let's start there and talk about the Eagles OC job and why that offense was so weird this year. It was way worse than it should have been. They were 32nd, last in the NFL in 3-and-out percentage.
Really?
This year.
Wow. I mean, it's a weird organization because they're Super Bowl champs. So, they're obviously a good organization. We know that. Howie Roseman's as good as anyone at his job. I think he's a smidge overrated. We never talk about anything he does wrong, but that's fine. He's still,
he deserves the credit he gets.
Yes.
People talk about him like he can't miss. And I don't think
he hits every draft pick. And right. Yeah.
For ranking GMs, he might be #1 though. And
sure.
So he's got scoreboard and he's done a lot of great things.
And their ownership helps because they are top of league in cash spending every year, which is helpful too. They can spend a couple more real dollars than everybody else, but it's not really what we're talking about here. But needless to say, I don't think it's a bad roster at all. And they do a very good job at all positions. And I remember the days when they would ignore linebacker and safety and slot corner and those type of things. And now they've changed dramatically. But we're talking about the offensive side of the ball. And maybe Barkley's slightly declining. I think A.J. Brown is slightly declining. I've never been a huge Hurts believer, but I give him all the credit in the world as being a big game player. I mean, that's pretty clear. And clearly the O-line is declining. It's not the best O-line in the league like it was for what seemed like a decade. But none of those things are bad. It's not like if we just had a quarterback or if we just had 2 more offensive linemen, we'd be back to mediocrity on offense. And it's as dysfunctional as an offense has been really the whole second half of the season. And so I think this is a very easy situation. I would think it's a very attractive job. I mean, who doesn't want to go to the playoffs and win the NFC East and work with that line and whoever else? I don't know if A.J. Brown will be back. I kind of suspect he won't, but his contract doesn't make him easy to move. But my next question is, I don't think there's, as you said, there's not going to be a head coaching change. But is his seat a little warm for a guy that just won the Super Bowl?
You talk through it and you go, okay, so you're gonna do another coordinator swap. And last time they needed coordinator swaps offensively and defensively. And it's like, okay, well then you start looking at Nick Sirianni and you ask the question, well, what exactly do you do here? If you need a great offensive coordinator and a great defensive coordinator.
And the best roster in the league.
Yeah, and the best
you need the best GM, offensive coordinator, and defensive coordinator.
I think it's absolutely worth asking that question. And even though, this is how fast the NFL moves, because you are the defending champions. You go one and done in the playoffs. You were still a playoff team in one-year division. Those are good things. And some teams, some franchises would kill for that, right?
Of course.
But another season, and if you're talking about offensive coordinator again, you got to make changes at probably head coach and maybe quarterback.
And they have made a lot of head coach changes since Andy Reid. I mean, this is their fourth. They're not the most patient organization, and they're not the same as the Steelers or Ravens. But I do think with all the success that Ben Johnson and Jacksonville and New England's having, that these owners might look at coaching changes as, I'll just hire somebody else that's really good.
Change it up until you find the right guy. Keep moving. So you talk about the coaching changes in Philly, and this is pretty wild. So the last 2 Super Bowls that the Philadelphia Eagles won was 2 different head coaches. So remember Doug Peterson in 2017, they won the Super Bowl. Then they lost in the playoffs the next couple of years, then had a really bad year, and he was out. So a few years after winning Super Bowl, he was out. Nick Sirianni comes in, and then they end up winning a Super Bowl again in his second year, and then lost. So it's a very similar pattern to what we've seen from Peterson and Sirianni, and this would be if it goes really south, you get fired year. If you're on the same pattern as Peterson, second year Super Bowl, then you lose in the playoffs, then you lose again, and then you're out. So looking at the offensive coordinator, this will be the 5th offensive coordinator in 5 years for the Philadelphia Eagles, because Nick Sirianni was hired, and he brought in Shane Steichen as offensive coordinator and Jonathan Gannon as defensive coordinator. So that group got 2 years together in 2021 and 2022. And then Shane Steichen and Jonathan Gannon, both coordinators, get head coaching jobs. So they have to bring in 2 new coordinators. And what happened that year? They lost in the wild card playoffs. Brian Johnson, offensive coordinator, Sean Desai, defensive coordinator, both fired. So now you're on so that's your second OC in second year. So now you fire them, and you're going into your third OC for your third straight year, which is Kellen Moore on offense. They bring in Vic Fangio on defense. So Fangio's a home run. He's not getting head coach interviews, so that's an awesome hire, because you can just
love that. Yeah, he's a lifer. Yeah,
is what you really want there. And it's kind of like what they have going on in Kansas City, although
like Jimmy Johnson back in the day in Philadelphia. Yeah, right.
You're getting some head coach interviews over there with your staff in Kansas City, but I don't think Spagnuolo is going to get a job, and I think it's a similar situation to Fangio, where you just have a great defensive coordinator and you don't have to lose them. Offensive coordinators, you don't have that luxury.
No,
because Kellen Moore then one and done, because you win the Super Bowl and then he gets a head coach job. So now you're on to your 4th OC in 4 years. You're good on defense. Offense looks weird, losing the wild card round, and Kevin Patullo, your 4th coordinator in 4 years, is now fired. So either they do a great job and get a head coach job, or they do a bad job and you fire them. So that's what's gone on 4 times in a row. This is the 5th offensive coordinator in 5 years. And that can't be good for your quarterback. If you want to point fingers at Jalen Hurts and say, well, why does it look so weird there? Well, it's like, it's a different coordinator every year. So that's not great. And we talk about that happening a lot with young quarterbacks that come into the league. And that's what Jalen Hurts has dealt with. But I saw another nugget here, which is fascinating with Jalen Hurts, because this goes back to college for him. Jalen Hurts, and I haven't done the background on this, and I know some of it is legit because of Alabama and Oklahoma and how things changed for him in the college level before he got into the NFL. Jalen Hurts has had a different offensive coordinator every year of his football life since 2016.
Wow.
So that's going to college. So he goes to college, new offensive coordinator. Second year, new offensive coordinator. Third year, new offensive coordinator. Fourth year, new offensive coordinator. Goes to the NFL, new OC 5 times in a row. So that's 10 years of never having back-to-back the same offensive coordinator for Jalen.
That's pretty crazy. I know, like Baker Mayfield had some crazy stretches like that because he was always changing teams, not the team was changing on him type of thing.
Yeah.
Man, those type of things happen more than people think. If you look at every quarterback, that someone might be like, I had 6 out of 8 changes, or, but still, that's really hard to overcome, especially because he's like all these guys. He's very much a developmental player too through his career. I mean, he had a lot of things you need to work on.
And the drop back passing game is the thing that really starts to fall apart. And I think that's the most difficult thing to put together. A run game seems to be a little bit easier, but you mentioned Saquon Barkley. He had a ton of carries. Is that why it didn't look as good, or is the coordinating part like a big aspect of it? Because I always bring up this
More
stat
coordinator.
Right. I think so too. And offensive line coaches are always really important, and they got one of the best there in Philly. So you're not going to blame that. Saquon Barkley had over 1,000 yards before contact in 2024.
I know, that's insane.
And this year, there's no space for him to run. He's not creating as much himself. Is it all the above? Are they getting a little too old on the offensive side of the ball? So a lot going on, but I think you had to make a change at offensive coordinator, but continuity has been awful on the offensive side of the ball there, even though they've been successful in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm. I go back to Sirianni, though, the more we talk through this, though. It's like, okay, I got you the best GM, the best defensive coordinator, the best O-line coach, and repeatedly offensive coordinators that become head guys. And you had this big problem on offense. Why didn't you fix it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like, and you're yelling at your players on the sideline, and that's well on top of it.
Like, it didn't go great in Detroit, but Campbell took over the offensive coordinator job and said, I'm at least going to try to fix it. He didn't do a very good job. People don't overlook that part, but you're the guy that needs to fix all the problems, you know? You're the chief fix-it operator, you know?
Just real quick, I wanted to take a peek at those offensive coordinators at Alabama, and now I'm seeing that.
Probably a lot of head jobs. Yeah,
there was Bill O'Brien, Lane Kiffin, Steve Sarkisian, Brian Daboll was there as well, and so going back a ways, they did have a lot of turnover at offensive coordinator. Those guys, kind of like some of the Philadelphia.
I'm gonna be here for a year and be a head guy.
Got a head job somewhere else. Right,
win a national title and coach the best players in the nation and go be a head guy.
So, I mean, you can point to Jalen Hurts, and I think, as far as a drop back passer, there are some things that he needs to definitely be better at. But dang, that is a level of difficulty that you don't really see a player successful when you have that many different offensive coordinators.
Certainly noteworthy. I mean, that's a lot to overcome over the course of a career.
Next, let's talk Chargers, because Greg Roman has been fired now as offensive coordinator in Los Angeles, and we're going to rank quarterbacks, offenses, and defenses from the 8 playoff teams that remain next. Today's episode of NFL Six Pack is brought to you by Gusto. Let's be real. No one starts a business for the joy of calculating tax withholdings or managing payroll spreadsheets. That's where Gusto comes in. It takes the stress out of payroll, benefits, and HR so you can focus on running your business and supporting your team. Gusto is the all-in-one remote-friendly payroll and HR platform that makes managing your team simple, transparent, and fast. Whether you're hiring, onboarding, paying employees, Gusto helps you do it all from one place without the hassle or hidden fees. Unlimited payroll runs for one monthly price, which means no surprise charges at the end of the month. Gusto's automated tools like offer letters, onboarding materials, and direct deposits save hours every single week for those business operators. So try Gusto today at gusto.com/LockedOnNFL and get 3 months free when you run your first payroll. That's 3 months of free payroll at gusto.com/LockedOnNFL. One more time, that's gusto.com/LockedOnNFL.
Hey, it's Matt Derry from the Locked On Lions podcast. The people I love depend on me. If I'm gone, the financial responsibilities don't disappear. I didn't want my family figuring things out during the hardest moment of their lives. That's why I knew only one place to go. I chose life insurance through my friends at Ethos. Ethos makes getting life insurance fast and easy, 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. There's no medical exam. You just answer a few simple health questions. You can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies are as low as $30 a month. I love the folks at Ethos. Protect your family with life insurance from Ethos now by going to ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. In as little as 10 minutes, you can get the free quote and up to $3 million in coverage at ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. That is ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Application times and rates may vary.
Greg Roman out as offensive coordinator of the Los Angeles Chargers. And just like the Eagles job, I think this was probably the right move. Greg Roman has been a staple for not only Jim, but John Harbaugh offenses. And Roman has an interesting skill set because Greg Roman is a good coordinator. He's been a run game coordinator. He's been a tight ends coach. He's been assistant offensive coordinator. But you think about the offenses that he's had the most success with, and he installed the pistol offense that kind of took over the NFL with Colin Kaepernick in the 49ers, the first time Jim Harbaugh was in the NFL. And then he was Lamar's offensive coordinator with John Harbaugh in Baltimore. And then he ends up back with Jim Harbaugh and the Los Angeles Chargers. So clearly there's some trust there between them. But as far as drop back passing games, that's where it's always fallen flat with Greg Roman. And similarly with the Eagles, if you have an offensive coordinator and you don't have a good drop back passing game, things are going to change. And that's what happened in Los Angeles. And I think it needed to happen in Los Angeles. But the first thing that comes to mind here with this job is, speaking of the Harbaughs, what about Todd Monken? Just jumping right over from John to Jim and being the new OC for the Chargers.
I guess it's not shocking, but I kind of don't like all the Harbaugh passing around coaches. And
I didn't like that trade they did. That
the
felt
OA
like
trade,
where they swapped players, and it's like, wait a second, that guy's available, and the brothers just made this swap, and I don't know.
It's a little weird, but even like in a way, it's like a farm system too. Like before he became Seattle's head coach, McDonald was this hotshot assistant for the Ravens. So he sends him to Michigan with his brother to be the DC so he can call plays. Then he comes back and is the DC for the Ravens. So he keeps moving up the ladder in the Harbaugh world. Then he becomes a head coach of Seattle. It's good for him, but still, that's a little bit of an advantage that everyone else has. I'm not jealous. I think
and the Harbaugh brothers are competitive, and they'll take those advantages, especially if it's not breaking any rules. And technically, he's not breaking any rules. But yeah, there's some legitimate collusion. It's not the illegal kind, but they're colluding with each other. The Harbaughs are.
They're Thanksgiving dinner with their mom going, hey, you want OA? And but anyway, this isn't what we were talking about, but as you can imagine, the last 24 hours, I've done a lot more homework on these coaching candidates. And I think their defensive coordinator, Minter, will be one of the head coaches, one of the 9 openings. And maybe Baltimore, which is kind of hilarious too.
Again, you swap OC-DC from Baltimore and the Chargers. And if that's the case, the Chargers will be looking at 2 new coordinators. And again, you have a CEO head coach that's not calling plays on either side of the ball.
Right. And I have no doubts about Harbaugh. This is not an Eagles situation. Harbaugh can be my head coach any day of the week. The Chargers version, either actually. But if I were Roman's lawyer, though, I'd be like, I know things weren't great, but we didn't have any offensive linemen for much of the year. You know what I mean?
That's a tough one because there was no chance with that offensive line. But did they not coach it up well enough is what you have to ask. Because there's other teams that lose players and you end up okay. Like you have a 53-man roster. There was other NFL players on your roster. And you lose 2 guys and you can't operate.
I mean, because the interior O-line was the guys you planned on playing.
Yes.
Becton and those guys, and they didn't play great either. And I don't think they're short on weapons. I'll take McConkey and all those dudes. And
that's kind of the thing. So you see the weapons on the outside even take a step back, and you're like, you're not even getting the maximum what you think of out of a star quarterback. And the weapons on the outside, offensive line's a mess, and you are just non-functional. And I think that's in the end, like, well, you got to at least be functional, even with practice squad guys out here. It's the NFL.
It just seemed like way too many times it was, hey, Justin, make a play for us, not make anything easier on your star quarterback. And getting Alt and Slater will make things easier on the star quarterback, no matter who the coordinator is. But they didn't have a lot of easy buttons for Herbert. I mean, it was always just stand back there for a couple seconds, get drilled in the teeth, and deliver the football,
there's so many names on the interview lists for head coaches around the NFL, and partly because there's so many openings, and then every team is interviewing every guy. It feels like nobody's moving fast right now.
I mean, if you're a playoff assistant coach that's getting all these interviews, how much time in the day do you have? I mean, if 9 teams are interviewing and you're trying to get ready for the Bills,
and can you wait for the guy that is still in the playoffs that needs to have the week between the Super Bowl to come actually do an in-person interview?
Right. The whole process is always weird every year. Like, the best guys are the ones that are busy. I
think maybe Harbaugh needs to find his job, and then dominoes will start to fall and people will slide into place potentially with some of these jobs.
Probably.
But again, the teams that do the best usually have the hottest coordinators. And so we're going to have to wait for some of these teams and see who's in the Super Bowl and probably championship games before all the candidates have a chance to even start interviewing in person. Todd Monken was talked about as potentially somebody who would be a head coach interviewee.
The last 2 off seasons, I think he's interviewed.
And the way things went this year, it's he's gonna have to he won't be OC for his current team. I don't remember seeing his name now on any of the interview lists either. So
I mean, I guess Harbaugh could take him with him. He could end up with either Harbaugh.
That's true. He could just join, especially if the reports are true that they wanted Monken out, and that was part of why John Harbaugh lost his job, because he was vouching for his guy and didn't want to change offense coordinators.
Maybe that's a group deal. Who knows? Yeah.
Maybe John and Jim should just coach the same team together at some point.
They should be in the same division for sure.
Yeah, they should. Take the Raiders job.
Take the Raiders job. Take Monken with you. Right.
All right. Let's rank quarterbacks. Let's rank offenses. Let's rank defenses of the 8 remaining playoff teams next. Today's episode of NFL Six Pack is brought to you by Quo. New year, new systems. This is the time when a lot of us look at the messier parts of how we run our business and think there has to be a better way. And there is. Streamlining your communications is one of the quickest upgrades you can make. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Quo, the smarter way to run your business communications. Because when your team is reachable, organized, and communicating in one place, you're not just working cleaner, you're creating more opportunities to connect with customers, and that's what it's all about. Your whole team can call and text from one shared business number, so nothing gets missed. Everyone sees the full conversation thread, which makes replies faster and more personal. It's no surprise Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses, from solo operators to growing teams. Make this year where no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free, plus get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/lockedonnfl. That's Quo, QUO.com/lockedonnfl. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. This episode is also brought to you by Home Chef. As the new year gets going, I know it's the same for me, trying to eat a little bit better. A lot of people trying to simplify their routines, and dinner is a big one. Between busy work days, cold winter nights, and packed schedules, having an easy, reliable dinner plan makes a huge difference. That's where Home Chef comes in. Home Chef takes the stress out of cooking by delivering fresh, pre-portioned ingredients right to your door with easy-to-follow recipes that actually taste great. They're rated #1 by users of other meal kits for quality, convenience, value, taste, and recipe ease. And it's easy to see why. Meals come ready to fit your schedule. 30-minute recipes, oven-ready trays, or quick lunches. Over 30 weekly options, including family-size meals, different dietary choices available as well. For a limited time, Home Chef is offering our listeners 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Just go to homechef.com/lockedon. That's homechef.com/lockedon for 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Must be an active subscriber to receive free dessert. Who's got the best quarterback left of the 8 teams in the tournament? And there's no Lamars, there's no Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
There is a Josh Allen, though.
He's clearly won. Let's get that out of the way. So I did this kind of quick, scratched them on a napkin and wanted to talk through them. And to your point, there is no Lamar and Burrow and Mahomes and the usual names. And I think some of these guys, Caleb Williams and May, and I thought the same even when it opened, Lawrence, some of those type of dudes could really make a name for themselves and become that next group of, before Allen was Allen or before Lamar was Lamar.
This is where you get that commercial endorsement, right? Like some quarterback right now is going to be hawking Subway or whatever, right?
Yeah, right. Uber Eats or whatever. Yeah, exactly. But overall, it's a pretty weak field, for the final 8. I mean, I wasn't blown away like, man, I'm really too hard on this guy when ranking him, and it makes me think too, and it's more of an off-season conversation, but would you rather have, like the Broncos are a good example. Would you rather have or the Niners? Would you rather have the play caller or the quarterback?
Right.
I think
that's a good way to put it. And some of these clearly, Bills, I'd rather have the quarterback.
Right.
In Denver, I'd rather have the coordinator.
But if you're one of these teams that doesn't have a head coach or a quarterback, would you rather have the stud quarterback, which is really hard to find, or the really good play caller, which is not quite as hard to find?
Yeah.
But it's also
if you get a good one, you lose them unless he's your head coach.
Exactly. So I went, see if you have any problems with this. I went Allen, Stafford.
Yep.
I don't think anyone's going to fight me on these.
That's where you got to go. Yeah.
Yeah. Third, I went Drake Maye.
Okay. I will stop you there and say a Patriots fan listening to this podcast right now is pulling over and tweeting at us because they're saying, well, Drake Maye is the MVP and was better than Josh Allen this year, so he should be number one.
And especially when you rank him against Stafford because they're going to be the finalists for MVP.
Yes.
And I put Stafford ahead of him. But Stafford won the Super Bowl recently, and he's experienced. He's going to the Hall of Fame, so I'm sticking with it.
And Drake Maye, you still have time to prove it. And in February, we might say, you know what, Drake Maye is the best one.
Possibly.
Yeah.
What do you think about Caleb at 4?
Well, we just saw Caleb Williams get outdueled by Brock Purdy on the same football field. I think it's
he
a great.
He was pretty magnificent against Packers, though, too.
Yeah. Floor versus ceiling is clearly the debate with Brock Purdy versus Caleb Williams, because there's some throws that Caleb Williams has made that Brock Purdy cannot make.
He's definitely lacking consistency.
Yes, but there's tons of consistency and seeing the field and anticipation that Brock Purdy possesses that is really important playing quarterback, even though, you know, the height, weight, speed, and laser show might not be there as far as balls he throws and puts in places that other guys can't, which is the most underrated and most important part of playing quarterback in the NFL. But I think they belong.
I like your case for Purdy, don't get me wrong, but I would rather play against Purdy than Williams.
Purdy is playing better quarterback. Caleb Williams
more dangerous.
Is a scarier quarterback.
Yeah,
he actually could be better. Is he there yet? I don't know. It's a good debate.
I mean, he's as scary as just about anybody.
Yes. Yeah. But I won't fight you on it. If you want to go Caleb Williams, we'll let you do your list here. Caleb Williams, then Brock Purdy.
Are you sure I even have Purdy next?
Oh, I don't know.
I do actually. Yeah.
Well, CJ Stroud should be next, but he's not.
I know that was my toughest one was Stroud versus Purdy, but Stroud looked horrible last week, and that's probably not fair to him. But he was really bad against Steelers.
He was bad. He was legitimately bad. And Darnold is another guy that's. There's a stat going around that 49ers wide receiver Juwan Jennings has twice as many postseason touchdown passes as Sam Darnold, 2-1.
Yeah, it's kind of funny.
So Sam Darnold has some things to prove still, as does Caleb Williams, as does Drake Maye in the playoffs.
Darnold was 8 for me. I had Knicks ahead of Darnold.
Oh.
And that was close.
I put Darnold ahead of Knicks and Stroud. Stroud not playing that well. It would be Stroud and Knicks are 7 and 8, and I would have Darnold at 6.
Okay. You could convince me to put Knicks 8 and Darnold 7, but I'm putting Stroud ahead of both of them for sure.
And Darnold and Caleb Williams are similar in a lot of ways because, you know, higher ceiling than Purdy, but a lower floor.
There's still that. My former co-host with the Steelers and I, we used to do a lot of this. Like, would you just take this or would you go fish? Or would you take door number 2? There's still a lot of go fish door number 2 with Caleb Williams. You know, like,
yes, right.
I kind of feel like I know what Darnold is, you know?
So those are the quarterbacks. How do you rank the offenses and what really changes? Because
let's come back to that.
Okay.
Because they're really hard for me. The defenses weren't that difficult.
Quarterbacks is easier than offenses. Defense is easier than offenses.
Okay.
Yes.
I think there's only two teams competing for the top defense. Yeah. And based off last week, I took Houston over Seattle.
I would have taken them before that anyway.
Me too.
The 3 best defenses in the NFL are in the playoffs, which is pretty telling.
I actually think Philly's ahead of Denver.
Really?
If I were to rank in the whole world, but Denver would be 4th.
I would put
third
Denver
in this
third, but again, 3 of 4 then.
Okay, yeah, but we're not far off, obviously. So top 3 were easy.
Philadelphia is not here because of what happened on offense.
Yes, but I think there's a big drop-off after that. I'm not real confident in any of these defenses from that point on. So a lot of times what I do, like with power ranks or any kind of rankings, is I start at the top and they're the easy ones. Then I go to the bottom because they're the easy ones. The middle is always the hard.
Yes.
With all respect to what they did, the Niners are still 8 for me.
They're just missing so many players. By the way, Fred Warner, practice window open.
Interesting.
He's not going to play this week, but maybe if the 49ers get by and get to the NFC Championship game, Warner could potentially make his return.
Pretty exciting.
Eric Hendricks had a nice game. It's nice that you could find a guy on the street like Eric Hendricks mid-season.
right.
It can be a stabilizing force at middle linebacker.
There are players like that. They can give you 3 games. They can't
Right.
give you 20, but they can give you 3, and they still have the head, and they were a great player at one point. Is it safe to say the Niners are behind the Bears? I have the Bears 7.
They're very similar.
Bears take the ball away.
You saw the 42-38, whatever the score was, game between the two of them. They seemed equally bad in that game. And then they tightened up in the playoffs last week to help their teams advance, which is a good sign. But they are probably the bottom 2 left. And then
there's 3 in the middle. I don't know what to do with.
I think so. For me, it's Texans 1, Seahawks 2, Broncos 3.
Yeah.
And then Patriots, Rams.
That's what I did. I went Patriots, Rams, Bills.
And then Bills would be 6. And then, 49ers, Bears, 7, 8, in whatever order you want. I think that's the way you got to rank them.
I don't think enough people are talking about how well the Patriots defense played last week. And I mean, I don't want to overrate one game, but when Milton Williams is back and Barmore's in the middle and Gonzalez on the outside,
they've got pieces and
and they're well coached. So I'm pretty happy with them at 4.
And there's a reason the Rams defensive coordinator Chris Shula is getting head coach interviews as well. His last name definitely helps, but he's doing a great job there with that group. Probably more talented in New England, I would think. Now the front 7 is really good though with the Rams too. So
yeah. So I think we're good on defenses. We basically agree there.
Offenses, we're going to have to wait. I'm going to put the offenses out to our listeners because we're out of time here. I want to hear from you guys. How would you rank
it's really hard because there's 5 great ones.
How would you rank the playoff offenses of the 8 teams left? Get the rest of your questions in for this week's divisional round. We can talk draft. We can talk playoffs. Whatever you want to get into at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL in the YouTube comments. And we'll check back in on offenses tomorrow, Matt.
I like it. I don't think about
it. The listeners can sway how you might want to rank this because it does get a lot more difficult to rank the 8 offenses left in the playoffs. Check out the Everydayer Club as well. NFL sixpack.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes and you can get ad-free streams of the podcast, members only Discord access. Again, check out the link in the show notes. Everydayer Club. Matt and I back tomorrow right here, NFL Six Pack.